I recently had a YouTube user that requested that I expand upon an ancient understanding of astrology. In this video, I'm going to mention a couple of ancient sources that refer to astrology, but before I do that, I probably should go ahead and expose the truly massive gulf between today and, say, the 1st century. I'm not certain that anyone can fully understand the difference between an average human being from today and the average human being from 1st century, particularly in the area of ideology, knowledge, and ability to comprehend the world. One of the best sources on ancient thought from about this time is Pliny the Elder. One of the fascinating things about this author is that he's mostly secular. Yes, he mentions God several times in his work, but on the subject of God, he sees no reason for them to actually exist. Still, even though Pliny appears to be rational, scholarly, and not so superstitious, his understanding of the world in his book Natural History is appalling. For example, this is Pliny the Elder's understanding of meteors. He refers to meteors as torches, lamps, darts, and beams. In no way does Pliny the Elder, who is collecting all kinds of data from all kinds of sources, seem to know what meteors are. All he has is essentially metaphorical explanations for what these objects are. In Book 1, Chapter 65, Pliny speculates on whether or not people live on the other side of the earth, and when it comes to why it is that people on the other side would not fall off, he simply answers the question with another question. Pliny is not a stupid man. He is a scholar and a prolific writer. However, the best knowledge known to the world at this time does not include the theory of gravity. Before we continue on to astrology, I want to show one more chapter of Pliny. In chapter 60, Pliny gives his understanding of rainbows. He understands refraction, and he continues on to reference Aristotle, and basically he says that Aristotle's understanding of rainbows is incorrect. This is very typical for Pliny the Elder. If he has an older source that has been debunked, he mentions that source and what they said. It's a very scholarly way of writing, but it's still a 2,000-year-old understanding. On signs, and particularly astrological signs, Pliny goes into a great amount of depth into the superstitions revolving around different stars, planets, eclipses, and other astronomical events. I'll put a link to Pliny's work down below. It's a fascinating early encyclopedia that gives a great indication of a 2,000-year-old understanding of the world. At this point, I'd like to switch gears and mention Ptolemy of Alexandria. Around 150 CE, Ptolemy published his work Almagest. Now, Ptolemy was a mathematician and astronomer. He believed in the Greek geocentric model of the universe, and he built a mathematical model that could predict the locations of stars and planets. Even though his model was geocentric and therefore wrong, he had a high level of ability to use mathematics, so high that he made an incorrect model predictable. Ptolemy knows the details of his geocentric model, even though it's incorrect. But what is perhaps even more interesting about Ptolemy is the rest of his work is basically defending astrology. Ptolemy assumes that astrology and astrological symbolism can very well predict events. He also assumes that there are too many amateurs using astrology, that astrology is most of the time used incorrectly. So Ptolemy devotes the rest of his book to try and explain how it is that astrology can predict events or characteristics of people. In a sense, Ptolemy assumes that astrology is similar to the way we view science. He assumes astrology is reliable as long as the astrologer has enough information. Like Pliny the Elder, Ptolemy of Alexandria is certainly intelligent, but his understanding of the world is simply unrecognizable when compared to a modern understanding. These people were several centuries before the age of science. The instruments and methods they use for understanding the world and the universe are crude and unreliable, and they're also the products of thousands of years of superstitious thought. These people are not stupid. These are some of the best thinkers of their time. Their understanding of the universe is simply far older than our own understanding, and it would be highly unfair to Pliny or Ptolemy to drag them into our time and force them to be observed under modern light. They simply exist much better in their own time.